Friends. Imagine a world where children don't learn rhymes or alphabets first. On their first day of life, their hands are taught to grip steel. Their first lesson? How to strip and reassemble a lasgun. This was Cadia, a fortress world where war wasn't a profession. It was the very air they breathed. The thunder of cannons was lullaby. Orbital bombardments a second heartbeat. Every child grew knowing one truth. Death wasn't a possibility, it was a certainty. The only question was when. And yet, when Cadia finally burned, its people didn't vanish. They scattered. Thousands of regiments deployed across the stars. Forgotten soldiers, guarding forgotten places. One such place was TERS 77 Alpha, a communications relay buried in the icy wastelands of Colas Prime. Just a block of ceramite and concrete from the outside, but inside, it pulsed with power. Its Vox arrays could punch signals through warp storms themselves. The garrison? Just 43 souls. Survivors of the 47th Cadian shock troops. Once an army, now reduced to remnants. Broken, scarred, but still unyielding. Their leader was Casso Varen, a woman who had grown up with gunfire in her veins. By 6, she could assemble a weapon blindfolded. By 13, she had stared death in the face more times than most men did in a lifetime. Her violet eyes had seen both stars ignite and friends fade. She rarely smiled, and even when she did, her eyes kept searching horizons no one else could see. At her side was Sergeant Jorik Thane, carved by scars and trials no human should endure. He had been buried alive in the trial of iron resolve, 72 hours in a coffin, surviving on tubes and sheer willpower. He emerged stronger, harder, a man who would never break. Around them stood others forged by war. Orvin, the engineer, who could repair machines with nothing but a wrench and curses. Marcus Dane, a farm boy turned sharpshooter whose lasgun could outshoot snipers. Petra Voss, a child soldier who once stood alone with a heavy bolter, holding a wall for 6 hours at just 14. Felix Harrow, the medic who had learned that saving lives sometimes meant deciding who could not be saved. This was the 47th, forgotten guardians at the edge of nowhere. Their base was less fortress, more tomb. A cathedral-like spire for communication. Barracks carved deep into the stone. Meals of corpse starch. Days of drills, inspections, remembrance. 3 years passed in silence. Until one day silence cracked. Petra Voss caught a faint distress signal. Broken. Distorted. But clear enough. An Imperial ship was in trouble. And in that moment, the forgotten soldiers of Cadia were called once more into the war. The Cadians set out into the frozen wastes, following the signal. It led them to a crash site, an Imperial vessel half buried in ice and ruin. But the wreckage wasn't empty. Something twisted lingered there. Inside, they found signs of battle. Bulkheads scorched, corpses shredded, and scrawled across the walls. Symbols of corruption that no sane hand should ever write. Chaos had touched this place. The deeper they went, the worse it became. Shadows stretched where light should fall. Voices whispered without mouths. The air itself pressed against their skin like invisible hands. For veterans of Cadia, this was not new, but it was no less terrifying. At the heart of the ship the corruption waited. An entity, something pulled from the nightmares of the warp. Its voice was honey and venom, promising release, mocking their faith. It tried to turn them, to remind them of everything they had lost. Cadia is gone. You are forgotten. Why fight? But the Cadians did what Cadians always did. They fought. The battle wasn't with bullets alone. It was with faith, with sheer will. Their unity, their sacrifice, their refusal to bend. It tore cracks in the thing's power. Even as its impossible chamber twisted reality, their defiance shattered its focus. Walls collapsed. The illusion broke. And then light. The squad found themselves back in TERS 77 Alpha, their home. But something was different. The station glowed. Figures of radiant light filled the halls, not the ghosts of comrades, but angels, or saints. They moved with purpose, their presence burning away shadows that had never existed until that moment. Broken machines healed, corrupted steel turned pure. Even the frozen world outside felt touched by warmth. One luminous figure approached Varen. Its voice carried such authority that the entity's taunts now seemed like the cries of spoiled children. Well done, faithful servants. Your resistance has been witnessed. The corruption has been purged. But vigilance must remain, for the enemy never sleeps. And neither can you. They turned to Corvin. Her body, twisted moments earlier, now restored, whole again, uniform unscarred. Yet in her eyes memory remained. She remembered every agony, and she would never forget. The figure's final words rang in their ears. The wounded shall be made whole. The corrupted shall be cleansed. But purity demands eternal vigilance. And then the angels faded. The station was clean, whole, functional beyond even factory design. Supplies arrived on time. The silence was no longer haunted. Life returned to routine. But the voices of the dead were gone. Their ghostly comfort had ended. Now, remembrance ceremonies carried a heavier silence. And for the first time the Cadians wondered. Had anyone beyond them even known what they faced that night? 3 months later, new orders arrived. The 47th were reassigned. Orc raiders had been disrupting an agri-world. Garrison duty awaited. Routine normal. Forgettable. But as they prepared to leave TERS 77 Alpha, they noticed something unsettling. Marcus Dane, their finest marksman, was gone. His name, added to the remembrance list with solemn voices. Another fallen comrade in the endless tally of Cadia's dead. The squad departed, leaving their fortress behind. But Colas Prime never left them. During the journey through the warp, Harrow began noticing changes. Wounds that should have scarred were gone. Teeth repaired themselves. Age faded. They were healing faster, stronger, reflexes sharper. Petravos's aim, already deadly, became impossible. Corvin could feel the hum of circuits by touch alone. And Thane, he began sensing emotions as if they were flavors in the air. They weren't mutating. They weren't breaking. They were evolving. But why? Was it a blessing? Or preparation? The answer came as their ship's sensors picked up something in the void. A shape too vast to understand. Alive, but mechanical. Flesh merged with steel. Bioluminescent patterns crawling across its hull like thoughts too complex to grasp. And it wasn't alone. A fleet. Moving with purpose. Headed for Imperial space. The captain did the only thing he could. Ordered real space translation. Fired off a desperate warning. Whether anyone would listen was another question. The 47th reached their next assignment. A depot. Mundane duty. But at night, their dreams betrayed them. They saw visions of wars yet to come. Armies not yet born. Enemies that looked human. But weren't. And then came the final orders. From the Inquisition itself. Their next mission classified beyond their clearance. Their enhancements confirmed in secret files. Their DNA rewritten into something new. The Cadians had become more than human. Not by choice, but by design. Prototypes for a future war humanity did not yet understand. As Varen closed her eyes on their last quiet night, a thought echoed in her skull. The Emperor protects. But even she knew, this time, that might not be enough.